Top Med Talk.
Hello and welcome to Top Med Talk here at Anesthesiology 2024, the annual meeting of the American Society of Anesthesiologists. I'm Desiree Chappell, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host and founding editor of Top Med Talk, Monty Mythen. Hello, Monty.
Desiree, great to be here.
We wanted to say thank you to the American Society of Anesthesiologists for supporting us to be here with this beautiful booth right in the center of it all. We couldn't do this without you, as well as all of our sponsors, to keep Top Med Talk free and open to the world. Monty, tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days.
My day job now is Senior Vice President, Scientific Liaison and Professional Education. That's a handful, isn't it?
It is.
For BD Advanced Patient Monitoring, formerly, until recently, Edwards Critical Care. So BD acquired Edwards Critical Care. Even though the stand here is still adorned with Edwards, soon it will transition to be BD Advanced Patient Monitoring. 18 months ago, I was a professor of anaesthesia at University College London in the UK.
On Top Med Talk, we've had lots of conversations about how clinicians interface and work with industry to develop new products that help us as clinicians.
Innovation is what we all recognize we need and what advances clinical care. Innovation comes in many different guises. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's gizmos, sometimes it's processes, but we have to relentlessly innovate.
We're really excited about this next conversation. We have the co-directors for the Swimming with the Sharks initiative, Barrett Larson and Runnels, joining us from Through The Cords. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I'm an academic at the University of Utah, which is a unique department in that we've got a history of commercializing and translating science into businesses so we can scale and have the benefits actually reach the patients. My personal mentor was Ted Stanley, who did the fentanyl lollipop and is quite famous around the world. And our department uniquely has a bioengineering division in it. So we have a really excellent resource for go to our bioengineers and say, physically, is this possible? And they say, yeah, what sensor would we use? They say, here it is. That's a big shortcut to finding out whether it can be done. That's where my academic home is. I spun a company about 8 years ago based on some work I did in Rwanda. It's an airway management company that's focused on how to use business mechanisms to actually drive sustainable access at scale and fix airway management problems. The nice thing about Africa is it is an absolute super hard place for design pressure. If you can't do it faster with less training and get really consistent outcomes, those design pressures are acute. The business theory is you go there, experience the design pressures, solve problems there. The problems exist here too. We just cover them up with extra training and resources. You then come and solve the same problems here and create access everywhere. That's the theory. I CEO that company, and I'm also one of the co-directors of Swimming with Sharks. During COVID, it went away for a while, but we resuscitated it this year. Credit to Steve Schaefer, who really started Swimming with Sharks and drove it. Strategically, what we'd like to do with Swimming with Sharks is to reopen that channel of value between industry and the ASA membership, because it's been closed over the last 25 years for all sorts of different reasons. And so industry has a hard time understanding what we need. Reopening that channel so we can get value flowing both ways again is where we're going to get innovation and get it into business and scale it and actually bring value to our patients. It's a long project.
Sean, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Barrett Larson. I'm an anesthesiologist. I practice at Stanford. My career took a curveball about halfway through medical school when I discovered innovation and entrepreneurship. It was definitely not part of the plan, but it led me on a journey where I ended up starting a company, running that, and ultimately sold that to Smith & Nephew. It's been a remarkably interesting, fun, rewarding, terrifying journey. It's taught me that in order for these things to succeed, it really does take a village, and you need mentorship, you need guidance, you need support, you need community. And that's what we're trying to do here with Swimming with the Sharks, develop that community and foster a sense of innovation in this environment that we can hopefully encourage the next generation of entrepreneurs and innovators to do cool things.
Sean, can I take you back to the 25 years? What happened in the 25 years that put the barriers up?
This is something that Ted Stanley identified 20 years ago when he was training me as a clinician. Businesses were restricting access to the clinicians, thinking that the access was a conflict of interest. And what we didn't recognize that the industry disseminates not only drugs and tools, but also knowledge. Inside our departments, it's really hard now, outside of grand rounds, We don't have lunches with industry where we have a speaker. That was a vital part of disseminating knowledge in our departments. Marketing is upstream and downstream. A salesperson is also bringing information back to the companies about, hey, I saw the device get used in this way that's unique, or I got the device was misused, or the drug, they're saying it causes this issue. And so it puts up a lot of nodes that you have to communicate through to get to understand what's happening in the ecosystem that the tools and the drugs are being used in. And the more barriers, the harder it is to get high-fidelity information for what's happening. We see it in that a lot of these meetings really, it's the same products. A lot of the innovation is business innovation. How do you turn a video laryngoscope into a recurring revenue source? That's a business innovation. Doesn't necessarily have clinical impact. I think opening those channels again should open up more clinical.
I trained 40 years ago. Having lunch with an industry partner, as you said, imagine Propofol's just getting launched or the laryngeal mask. Archie Brain would come to the department with some not very good lunch.
That's been in England.
Exactly. And educate you about the challenges of managing the airway. And, oh, by the way, there's this new product, which you may or may not decide to use. Most of it was education wrapped around the opportunity to explore the product. Then I think starting in America, the barriers went up in a way that was motivated by thinking that formed some form of bribery to buy.
I think it framed industry as extractive, here to do things for profit. And it framed clinicians as extremely vulnerable to bribery. Academically, there's been a lot more barriers. It's very difficult for me to present anything in airway management, even though I am up to date. Whereas in the day where Archie was there, he could talk about the expertise he had in the full scope of airway management. He would not be able to do that in the U.S. now.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
But Barrett, do you remember the world before when the barriers went up?
Yeah, actually, I distinctly remember that. During med school, it happened all of a sudden. I remember there was a day where we had to bring all of our industry paraphernalia, any pen, book, anything that had any type of industry affiliation associated with it had to be dumped into a bin. And then they gave us our academic Stanford branded paraphernalia. It was a celebratory thing, but it did feel like it distinctly marked a transition in time from when industry all of a sudden was now needed to be kept really at arm's length.
It's a bit like burning the books or the artwork. It was definitely very good reasons. It was far from perfect.
The pendulum swings a lot in different directions, and there was a bit of excessiveness before. I think everyone can admit that. The education for our clinicians, especially in new technology that's emerging, so many people now have this hands-off approach and feel like they can't interact with it because they're breaking a law or doing something nefarious. It creates an impediment to us being able to really advance our profession.
Yeah, I learned a lot when I was teaching in Rwanda. Tools or drugs are only effective when you have the skills and knowledge to operationalize. By creating these barriers, you can get the tools of drugs in the hospital, but without the skills and knowledge, it's very difficult to operationalize them so that they're bringing benefit to our patients. One of the things that I think Swimming with Sharks has the opportunity to do is we reviewed 45 applications this year. Next year, it'll probably be 70. Those are all anesthesiologists trying to solve a problem. Yeah. For industry to see what problems they're trying to solve, that's very valuable. We really like to have this be a collaborative effort between the ASA and the industry to open up that channel so that we can communicate. And that's what we're strategically doing and structuring to optimize that.
I'll just throw this last anecdote. I was privileged to inherit, I was appointed to, the longest-standing industry-funded chair in the United Kingdom. Previously, Portex, the airway people, became Smiths Medical. They funded a chair at University College London. I was the last person in that chair. And one of the reasons I think it stopped eventually was because of this sort of nervousness of having an industry-sponsored chair. All they did, they sent money on a regular basis, and we did research with it, PhD students, etc., and they had first right of refusal on inventions, but no absolute rights to it. It was a thing of beauty.
I think the NIH does that.
Barrett, I want to get into the Swimming with the Sharks project and how it went this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what the process looks like for someone who's interested in getting out their ideas
The way the process worked, we had a call for applications about 6 months ago, and we had the applicants submit short elevator pitches. We had them record 2-minute videos to see if they could effectively get their message across. If you can't deliver the message quickly and concretely, it's probably not going to do well on the main stage here at Swimming with the Sharks. That was how we ended up getting people to apply. Then we went through a rigorous process where we scored all the applications along various vectors and selected 4 finalists. Sean and I worked with the finalists over the last couple of months. We had the final presentations yesterday, and the winner was a company called Flowtherm.
What were the other 3?
The other 3 companies were Vine, which was a soft robotic intubation device. We had ART-OR, an esophageal manometry device for optimizing ventilation. We had Surge, a single-cell omics immunologic assay for risk profiling patients before surgery. The winner, Flowtherm, combined SCD and warming. There was a small cash prize, but I don't think that's what was motivating most people. The honor, the opportunity, the publicity that could potentially come out of it, the connections. I think that's what the real prize is.
And the chance to talk to Desiree Chapman.
Well, there you go.
There.
The networking and getting that out there.
Absolutely, awareness.
Yeah.
And I think validation, the voting actually was the audience.
Oh, okay.
In the past, we'd had voting be for people on the stage. This time we said, what does the audience think? And I think that's really valuable because that resonated with the anesthesiologists in the audience as well. I was a past winner, and that was very credible when I said I won the ASA Shark Tank. That means something to investors.
And you're not pitching it just to investors, you're pitching it to your colleagues,
Yeah.
which is really important to get their feedback and know what works. That's great. Congratulations. We don't have the winner with us today. They had to travel home, but we have a couple of the other participants that we'd like to hear a little bit more from. So if we can take a time out real quick and switch us out, we'd like to have them up here and hear from their perspective what it's been like from them as inventors and as the ones competing for this.
Excellent.
Thank you. Congratulations.
You guys come on out.
Yeah.
Come on up. All right. We're back with some of the participants in the Swimming with the Sharks competition that was held yesterday. So we have Nicolette Young and Jillian Nadeau. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Nicolette, I'll start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you've been practicing, maybe a little bit about what you presented during the competition.
My name is Nicolette. I'm a medical student, and my background was integrating microbiology, international business, and community health, where I got degrees at the University of Florida. I wanted to help the medical community, but wasn't in medical school yet. So I created a company, and we were able to do micro grants in Peru to help the community. I brought a healthcare administrative fellowship at Northwell Health. I was able to work in the pandemic where we were able to operationalize COVID units and entered medical school afterwards. This really brought in the healthcare and business aspect of it. I am currently taking an anesthesia research fellowship at Massachusetts General Hospital, and that really led to where we are right now, the Swimming with the Sharks Challenge. Yeah. We were in the operating room. We have a very burdensome EIT esophageal pressure machine, which was about the size of one of ourselves, and we got the opportunity of seeing Swimming with the Sharks. It forced us to say, we have this beautiful device, gives optimal ventilator settings. How do we make it into a business component, a prototype, and make it accessible not just in one hospital, but across the nation in a very big population, such as obesity?
Wow, you've done a impressed with all. I want to talk to you a little bit about the competition, but first, Julian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for the opportunity to participate. I'm trained as an engineer in artificial intelligence, and I specialized at Stanford University. I went to grad school there, specifically applying machine learning to healthcare data. The idea was, how do we incorporate some biological breakthroughs? Now you're able to measure thousands of potential proteins, genes, and how do you incorporate this into real-world applications? One of the things we decided to apply this to was to predict postoperative complications. So we're doing a blood test before the surgery and then can predict who's at risk, who's not at risk. The opportunity to participate was also a great opportunity to get feedback on how we change patient care from this information, which is really the key element for us to drive this innovation forward.
Yeah.
And we were hearing about this yesterday, Professor Henrik Kellett was referring to. Can I ask a couple of questions, Des?
Please.
So start with Nicolette. Just for people who are thinking about possibly trying the same sort of thing, when you wanted to get going, what sort of support did you get from Mass General Hospital or wherever you went? Was there a tech transfer office?
Yes, Mass General Hospital, amazing support, both from clinicians, administrators, day-to-day, especially as a student. They are able to support at all levels. What they had given me the opportunity was to see the current best standard and practice of care in the operating room. And being in this hospital, they have so much innovation going on. As a student, I saw this is very big. How do we make it small, really simplify the question, and propose an idea of alternative next steps? That opportunity led to other resources, both from the clinical side saying, yes, that is feasible, from the engineering side saying, yes, we can download that, from the administrative side saying, okay, let's make sure we're able to write a succinct 1-page and 5-page proposal. When I was able to see the logistics and operations of all of it, they said, create the Loom video, and then we'll provide the administrative support. Being able to recognize standard of care and niches and bouncing that from all of the best stakeholders we have, I think is a great step.
And then did they help you with prototyping and protecting intellectual property and patents?
Yes, we did. So we were trying out a few prototypes. We hope to make it a 1-port system. Right now it's about 2. We were able to test it out on animal models as well as human models. Being able to have that prototype, everyone was there and supporting in both settings. It was fantastic. We do have the IRB pending as well.
At Stanford, legendary place for innovation. I'm guessing that you just had to sort of wake up one morning and the helpers.
No, yeah. I mean, it's always a process. Even at Stanford, I would say it's never trivial. But I would say that they were very supportive and they do have a lot of experience. So when you come out with the idea, which is a good first step, they help you frame what you need to develop and think about to move forward with the innovation and spin off the company. I think we're very eager at first to just go out of the woods and be like, okay, we have this, how do we move forward? They're like, wait a minute, what proof points do you need to get? What IP do you need to secure? This has been developed at Stanford. Can you run any trials that would be beneficial to do at Stanford while you're there? That's actually what we did, running additional trials, another 100 patients before we spun out, because I think it was an important step to get investment. All of those things guide us.
Having something like swimming with sharks to showcase it and be heard is brilliant. That's often the next hard bit. You've done all of those things, you think, but no one's listening now. Desiree?
I was just going to bring it back around as we close. What has your experience been? This is a competition that has been recently brought back, and I know that that's going to continue. So what has your experience been like for that, Nicolette?
I think this experience really provides medical students, but clinicians an avenue to say, okay, we are clinicians. We want to provide patients the best supportive care, but there's innovation. There's always the next optimal step for what we can provide to the healthcare system, strive to be better. And I think the field of anesthesia has a lot of potential being at the ASA, and this challenge really gives us.
Julian, from your perspective, if there are other people who are interested in participating next year, what are some of the first steps they need to take and what can help ensure their success?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was the hardest is to think about the audience here, which is a bit different from what you're used to as an entrepreneur. You're seeing investors that have their own background and you're seeing scientists, but here was a real opportunity to also present this to clinicians. So it's a whole different way of framing the product and the story to appeal to them. There's also an opportunity to talk to other anesthesiologists beforehand so they understand the story. I would recommend future participants do that and talk to clinicians.
Congratulations on making it that far and for the amazing work you're doing. I hope you continue with that because this is incredible and much needed within the world of anesthesiology.
Lovely speaking to you.
Thanks for listening to Top Med Talk. You can find us at topmedtalk.com. All the amazing conversations that we've had over the years at Anesthesiology can all be found there. If you find us on social media, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, YouTube, where's up, subscribe, every little bit helps. Again, thank you to the ASA and all of our sponsors for keeping Top Med Talk free and open access to the world. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Top Med Talk.
Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on YouTube and, of course, on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Also, it's important to remember that Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EdPom, evidence-based perioperative medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that, and the way to do that is edpom.org. Check out our website and find out about some of the incredible conferences we're going to be arranging across the year. edpom.org.